But the the coolest thing about studying, stressful times and stressed out people is that we can stay connected. We can learn how to stay connected um, in stressful times. And that's what's cool about consciousness. It's one of the coolest things about my job is that I get to help people be conscious, and then in being conscious, they can make better choices. So no matter what you're experiencing during the holidays, and what I was thinking about this, I was thinking, oh my gosh, not only do you have the holidays, which are stressful enough, but most of us in Northern California have just come out of the fire season, and a lot of us have friends and family and know people that were involved in the fire. So that's its own stress. And then also, there's just multiple thoughts about the political system. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen the political system be so chaotic and confusing and anxiety provoking. So those are three major factors that are coming together on everybody's stress. And so the main thing that I was thinking about as far as practices, like it's not like I can hand you a digital pill. I can't give you some kind of pill through the internet and help you get over this. And probably some of you are already taking pills. I don't want to know about that. That's a whole other story. But the point is that it's our internal organs, it's our internal nervous system, it's our internal brain, our mind that are all activated. And as one of my great teachers, Joanna Macy, said, things that are created through the mind, through the brain, through the body, can be healed through the brain, through the body, through the mind. I'm paraphrasing some of her really key teachings. So the stress that we've created for ourselves can be healed by us feeling into it and thinking about it and being conscious about it. So in the book I wrote, A Path for Couples, the one that we're renaming, I listed some basic practices that would help people in these stressful times. But I wanted to, we'll close the class at about 5:45 with one of those practices. And before then, I wanted to talk for a little while and then have some Q&A if people have specific questions about their own stress, their own tension, their own relationship, and keeping a connection. Then I wanted to be able to have specific answers for that. So we'll get to that. But the main thing that I've noticed, and it happens for myself around stressful times, and Deborah and I are, for instance, getting ready to leave on a trip for the holidays. So we've got the fourth part of the perfect storm. We've got the fire, we've got the political climate, we've got the holidays, and we got travel. So we're trying to practice what we preach. And the first thing, of course, which I've said to a lot of couples in sessions, is self-care. It's amazing how we start getting really nervous, we start getting overwhelmed, and there's a lot to do, and our bodies are kind of overamped, I think, overstimulated. And so we generally, most of us have practices that help us soothe ourselves. That's kind of the major image I'd like you to take away from this class tonight is there's this expansion into tension, stress, like our breathing gets higher up in our body and we're thinking a lot. But how do you soothe that? How do you come back to some place of rest or peace or even consciousness inside your body? So most of us have practices like meditation or yoga or Tai Chi or going to nature, taking a walk, going to the gym, sleeping. These are all things that help our bodies go back into a place of soothing. And strangely, we tend not to do these things when we're stressed out. And it's almost as if this hyper-productive part of our brain takes over and it says something like, if you just get the perfect ribbon for that package, if you just get your aunt like the perfect tchotchke or whatever from Amazon and it comes on time, and then you can go out and stare at the mailbox and hope you can make the delivery guy appear. Well, you're somehow going to feel better if you get that last thing done. But the problem is that I don't really think that works very well. I don't think that really helps people to feel relaxed. because in the process of getting to that end point, there are many opportunities you have to relax. And so just stopping for a moment and meditating for a few minutes, or just taking a walk around the block. But people tend to forget these most basic activities. And that just made me think, why don't we all do that right now? Why don't we all just stop? I'll stop talking. We'll just do a silent meditation while we're in the middle of the class. So I'd like everybody that can, please put your feet flat on the floor. Please sit up as straight as you can. And I'm going to try to mute everybody so there's no background noise. I wish I knew how to do that, actually. Mute all. Okay. Current and new. I don't know. This is crazy. Okay. So just close your eyes. Try not to make any background noise, eating your lunch or whatever. Just close your eyes and feel your feet on the floor. And feel your body. Feel your body, how amazing it is that it's breathing. It's breathing with you. And that's just an amazing phenomenon. You have a body. There's this interface between you and the outside world, and you call it breathing. And just start to feel in your upper chest or your lower chest or your belly or your lower back, where is it you actually sense the breath? Where is it you actually sense your breath in a physical dimension, in a physical stimulation or experience? And if you can, just rest your breath rest your attention on your breath. And keep it there just for a few minutes. And see if you can feel yourself soothing and relaxing. Feel yourself soothing, relaxing, and breathing a little deeper into your body. Making sure the lower parts of your lungs are filling with air. And if thoughts arise, just gently let go, return to the breath. So just keep this up for a few more breaths now. Watching how the mind will create thoughts, memories, and plans, and just gently let go. Return to your own consciousness, resting on your breath, the physical sensations of the breath. Gently rest your attention on the physical sensations of the breath. Okay, we're going to close the meditation. So when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. I'll take just a few more breaths. I'll open my eyes and we can continue. Okay, so I think I'll be able to hear everybody. Would anybody want to say just one or two words? what it's like to meditate just briefly as we did. Anybody? Anybody want to say a word or two?
Yes.
Yes?
No, that wasn't my word.
That was your word, but what do you mean?
You know, even though it was so short,
Yeah.
it felt like it really served a very important purpose. And it felt really refreshing and like resetting the button.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Resetting the button. That's lovely. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Just very, very peaceful, very relaxing into my body. Just getting, like you said, just letting everything go and just following the breath in and out.
Beautiful. Anybody else? Just one or two words?
Well,
I heard a burp. That was not a word.
I couldn't tell if I was on, but
Yeah.
Ruth, yeah. I use the short breathing meditations, and they're very relaxing for me.
Okay.
So I've taught this to my clients, and I think the more you practice it, the more relaxed you can get in a short period. That's been my experience.
Yes, the practice. I mean, I think in some ways it's hard to really empty your thoughts in a short meditation. But to me, I just find it relaxing and soothing. So we'll do a meditation like that when we close the class. But I wanted to talk a little bit about anxiety and stress, and just really try to understand what is stress. I guess I'm going, yeah, what is stress? Well, for one thing, stress seems to be, when I'm talking to my clients about it, my couples, is related to how much you can get done in a day, productivity. And in some ways, that's a really insidious, there's a book, I think it's called something like The Protestant Ethic in the Spirit of Capitalism. And it really creates this whole model around how certain ways of achieving grace and getting to heaven generated the huge amount of productivity that Americans tend to be engaged in, far more than most other countries. I've been to Asia, like productivity is not their principal function over there. But Americans seem to have absorbed that as a lifestyle, but even more so as an ethic. And I've sometimes thought, when listening to people talk about how busy they are, that there's a competition. No, I'm really busier than you. Oh no, sorry. I'm really busy. You're not that busy. And oftentimes couples use that as a way of motivating the other to help them. I'm really much more busy than you are this time of year, and you should be helping me. So that, I find that whole conversation kind of fascinating, like busy, productive. And generally those conversations, people are really flooding with anxiety and tension. And it's so sad, really. It's sad that people can get so tense, as I said, about getting their aunt's cat the exact right food and wrapping it in a ribbon that exactly matches the logo on the cat food. This is what we obsess ourselves with at this time. So what I've said in other online classes, talked about other online classes, is what I've affectionately called the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse. The 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse. I want to talk a little bit about those. The first two are attacking and defending. Attacking, it's weird with the cameras. I got to figure this out. Okay, that finger goes there. Okay, attacking and defending. Attack, defend. Most of us, because of seeing many conflicts as children and as adults, we tend to pick up these basic practices. And so attacking and defending is one of the major things that starts to happen when one or both people start to feel tense. So attacking, if you think about it, needs a defender. You know, like if the attacker is just attacking, I guess you could have two attackers, but that just escalates so quickly. And then eventually there'll be a cycle of one person defending and the other person attacking, and it switches. You can see how this switches. But attacking is a kind of an aggressive act, and withdrawing is more of a protective and slipping away kind of behavior, of course. It's like putting up that shield, like you're not going to get through to me. So a lot of couples conflicts are based on that very simple strategy, that very simple interlocking strategy, which is important. I'll get to that in a moment. And then another of the third and fourth horsemen of the apocalypse, the relationship apocalypse, are pursuing and withdrawing. And so most couples have an identified pursuer, the one that apparently wants the relationship, you know, wants more time, wants more tension, wants more connection. And then there's the withdrawing, attacking, defending, pursuing, withdrawing. There's the withdrawing type who's always apparently always moving away from the relationship. So what happens in the pursuing and withdrawing is people get typecast. They get typecast so the pursuer kind of thinks, yeah, I'm the one that's really got the relationship in mind. I'm really interested in a relationship. And they don't realize that most of their efforts create distance. They apparently are trying to create connection, but the pursuing is stymied. It somehow triggers the withdrawing. So those two patterns, attacking and defending, pursuing and withdrawing, they tend to need the other type, if you think about it. They tend to need the other type. And the other thing that's clear about them is that they tend to escalate. The language and the behavior tends to escalate. As the pursuer pursues, the withdrawer gets more and more withdrawn and begins to shut down. So those patterns interlock with each other. And I had a really interesting conversation with a couple about a month ago, but maybe 4 months ago. And so they were stressing about this pursuer withdrawer dynamic, and you know, the pursuer often doesn't realize how angry they are. The pursuer's like, yeah, I'm trying to connect with you, but you never want to connect with me. What's wrong with you? It's like, it's very inviting, you know, it's very inviting to be pursued by an angry pursuer. And so, and the withdrawer, like it was the guy in this case, is getting typecast into, you know, you always pull away. And I always think it's way more complicated than that. Like couples have very simplistic ideas and understandings, I think, of how these patterns go. So in this one session, I said, well, why don't we reverse this for a minute? Why don't we just back it up and go, how does the guy pursue and how does the woman withdraw? And the woman's like, what do you mean withdraw? I don't withdraw. What do you mean I don't withdraw? And so then there was this really interesting session because the gentleman said, well, yeah, actually I do. You know, you come home from work, you've got your clients in Asia, you've got to keep talking to them. I want to have dinner. I want to connect with you. My work is done, but you're still online until like 11 p.m. And she's like, that's not withdrawing. I have to work. And he was like, yeah, but I never get any credit for trying to connect with you. It's exactly like George says. I only get tagged for withdrawing. I get no credit for pursuing. So it was really interesting because I think for the woman, she had to really understand that there was plenty of cases in which she was withdrawing or pulling away or being busy. I mean, it's fine. People are busy. That's not the problem. The problem is if that's a repetitive behavior that interferes with the relationship. That's what we're talking about. People are very busy. I understand that. So when you think about the pursuing and the withdrawing, and you think about the attacking and the defending, what I try to help couples do in sessions is keep dropping into a deeper level of body orientation, a deeper level of the physiology and the emotional experience of that pattern. Because to say, the pursuer withdrawer dynamic often sounds like, I need more time, and the withdrawer is like, leave me alone, I need more time to process, I'm a shy, retiring type. The conversation gets very stalled and repetitive and very predictable. So it was really interesting, like with the fellow, I was saying, well, it sounds to me like you're having this experience of moving towards your partner and then feeling frustrated or rejected. And he said, yeah, I guess so. And I said, well, you can probably turn on the television or, read a book or whatever. I said, but what is your actual experience when you think about having made these reaches out to your partner and not being accepted, not being heard, and in fact being blamed as being a withdrawing type when you're obviously making a lot of efforts to connect? And he said, whoa, I guess I never really thought about it, but it's really sad. Here I am in this relationship where I make a lot of efforts to connect and can't. And the woman she was in her, what do you mean, I'm busy thing. And then all of a sudden, you could feel, it's like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Something in the way he was talking, in the way he revealed himself to her, meant that she could relax, that she could just drop in to that a more relaxed place. She wasn't quite so tense. And she said, I never actually knew that. That's kind of sad that we're creating this. And they were able to have a conversation about what happens at night and why she might be protective, which is a really important conversation. And so they were able to drop out of their sort of roles. And when people are in these roles, they're usually feeling anxious. They're usually feeling stressed. So, it would be my prediction for most people in these stressful times that if you don't practice the self-care and the self-maintenance, then you're going to see the evocations of these patterns in a more intense, in a more inflamed, in a more overstimulated way. And so there has to be a moment of consciousness. I guess you would say that's another key practice. Actually, it's outlined in my book, a timeout practice. When you start feeling that overstimulation, your body is giving you a lot of signals that you're about ready to drop into an old pattern, an old predictable, repetitive pattern. And so it's really important that you be able to notice that, consciousness applied right in that moment when the stimulation begins, you have a chance of changing your behavior. You can say, oh, I need a moment to collect myself. I need a break. I need a breath. So you're always trying to go from that startled stimulation to back into consciousness. So that's really a key practice. So what I think I'll do, I wanted to end the class with a practice, but I thought that I would try to open up to some questions now, and trying to make sure I've got everybody still online here. Can everybody, how many people can hear me now? I'd like to get a count of who's actually here still.
I can hear you.
Is that Tosha?
It's Ruth.
Okay.
And Peter.
I can hear you.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, I don't have everybody on now. Okay, that's great. So wanted to take questions. If anybody has any specific questions about their relationship in these troubled times, let's open things up here.
Hello, George. This is Peter in Hawaii here.
Yeah,
And can you hear me okay?
I can. Yeah.
All right. So I'd like to put it out to the people that are doing this now. How do you all avoid the constant barrage of bad news
Wow.
that this seems to be, there's a kind of an anxiousness in the air over so much negativity that is out there at all levels. And so I'm wondering, what do people do to deal with that sense of pervasive negativity?
That's a great question. Peter, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You're obviously feeling the negativity.
I sense it all around me, but not here where we are now, but at home in the East Bay.
Oh, okay. I understand. Okay. So yeah, if other people want to weigh in on that, it'd be great. Anybody else want to say something about that?
Well, I think that for me, I mean, I'm not always aware of when this is happening. I think it's so insidious that it kind of affects probably the whole world. It's just an energetic structure around the world that is weighing on us. And I think one problem is we don't really realize it's happening all the time. We're like, oh, I feel terrible, but I don't know why. That kind of
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say let's apply consciousness here because all this negativity that Peter's talking about enters the body as anxiety. I think we have thoughts, I could do this political process, or I could vote for this person, or I could go to a food bank and donate food. All those are good. But I think that the negativity actually enters us as tension. And so in some ways, that's why the body-oriented method of psychotherapy or of couples healing is so important. If you don't notice your tension, I think the second speaker is speaking to that. If you don't notice the insidious invasion of all this negative thoughts, then you're basically going to start acting them out. Because like I said, the tension leads to the four horsemen of the relationship apocalypse. If you're feeling relaxed and at ease, they just don't arise. Mm-hmm. So I'm super careful about myself, about the news, and even conversations with people about the current political situation. I find a lot of this current situations are almost like reveling in the negative. Mm-hmm. So if I'm in a conversation for a very long time and I don't hear people moving into service or donating or some constructive, I feel bad and I want to get out of there, or I want to change the conversation. And I usually do that in a really awkward and I don't know, non-socially correct way. But I don't like certain kind of conversations. And I don't read the news very much. I don't need to know the president's latest folly. You could study 10 every day. What's the point? So I think people don't, one of the things that's in my book and I find really interesting is, do you tune your life towards happiness? Is that towards joy, towards vitality? If those are some of the deepest essential characteristics of humans. And I think it's our job to tune ourselves to evolve towards that, to be loving, to be compassionate. And so when the whole world is feeling negative, how do we serve? How do we learn to give back to the world, even in those conditions when we might feel worried or despairing? Those are very strong feelings. I've had plenty of those. But we still need to serve, I think. We need to help. So it's hard for me to help when I'm buried under the 10,000 tweets of Donald Trump. Anyway, that's a great question. Anybody else with a question on stressful times?
Yeah, I find, the way I handle the stress, one of the ways anyway, is just, relaxing, taking a walk in nature. Just, it's the old saw about stop and smell the roses. Find the peace, that's always here and every day, the beauty that's always here and every day, the little joys that are here always, every day, when we take the time again to notice them. Like you mentioned, taking the time to, in our meditation, taking the time to notice our breath, just watching our breath. And that's a miracle all in itself, just doing that. Also, I am a prayer practitioner at the Center for Spiritual Living, so I find the idea of prayer very good too. And that coincides with the Qigong that I do teach, of being able to, relax into our consciousness, into the oneness, into the being just present in this very moment, free from the stresses that are outside of us and just being with ourselves.
That's beautiful, Peter. Thank you. You're talking about practices, ancient practices that have been done for thousands of years. Prayer, meditation, qigong, and enjoying nature. These are spiritual practices, and like I said, we tend to avoid them, not avoid, we forget about them really, in stressful times, which is so strange. It's so like, really? Because these are the times when you need them the most. The one, there's another story from Joanna Macy, going back to the negativity question, is that there's a whole beautiful Tibetan myth that she was told about Shambhala warriors. And in that myth, it's a long story, I won't go into it, but Joanna's point is, if we want to be compassionate people, isn't this a really good time to be on the job? This is a really good time to be doing our work because it's really necessary. And I kind of take that to heart. Like, okay, this is the world that we have right now. And how do we want to interface with it? How do we want to be with it? I want to help people feel more alive and vital and loving. So that's how I want to interface with it. And when I get exposed to too many, catastrophes and, try to keep up on all the changes in economic policy and environmental policy stuff. And I just feel weighted down. So I admire environmentalists and political activists that confront that and can play into that world in a very dynamic and strong way. I think my work is a little bit more on consciousness and on the inner world. I think I read somewhere there's enough food on the planet to feed everybody. It's just in the wrong places. And the reason it's in the wrong places is because we don't have loving relationships. We're not feeling interdependent enough to actually share it. So that means those of us, I assume most of the people on this call, they're involved in consciousness work or relationship work, we're doing the key work for the planet right now. That's how I feel about it. All right, I have nothing more brilliant to add to this class. And any comments or questions? I want to close with a little meditation, but any other thoughts anybody wants to share or questions?
I'd just like to, I guess, say that there's also an aspect of grief involved in a lot of the current, world occurrences. If I guess there always is, but it just seems to come, as you mentioned, faster and more frequent than it has in the past. And it's taking time to grieve too, to actually acknowledge, the things that are going on, and putting our consciousness just in a sense of oneness with all those that have lost so much, and what we're losing too as a society.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, Peter, that was you, right?
Yes.
Thank you for that. It reminds me too of this interesting phenomenon that I noticed around the holidays. For me personally, my father died on the 21st of December. There's just so much family stuff. Am I in a family? Where's my brother? Where's my mother? There's an incredible poignancy. I think the holidays point out like the cycles of the season, the cycles of growth, the cycles of death. And it goes to what Peter's talking about. So it seems to me that in this time when the days are short and it's raining and it's dark, and it could be a time for the families to gather, there's this national urge to go shopping, national urge to go to the malls. And it seems like counterintuitive to me. And I think that what happens when you gather, like when I'm gathering with family and friends over this holiday, is very poignant. My youngest sister's husband is dying of cancer. He couldn't even come to the party. So there's grieving that's a part of the festivities, so there's this weird kind of jerking around. Am I supposed to be happy now, or am I supposed to be grieving? And I think what Peter's pointing to is really important, that there are kind of sacred nostalgia. Time is passing for all of us. Our kids are growing up. Our parents are losing their minds or dying. And somehow I think the holidays remind us of that because there's so many family gatherings. And so to be present with that, sometimes it's joyful, sometimes it's sad, sometimes you want to pray, like Peter was talking about. So that's probably a good place to close, is with just a reminder that these disciplines, the short meditation that we did, prayer, body-oriented stuff, which is yoga, qigong, walking, hiking, all that is very necessary in this time. And so is this application of consciousness to our patterns.